You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Looking forward to today's show of examples of what to do for exercise and workouts while fasting, and also absolutely the exercises you should not be doing in a fasted state. I'm going to explain all of that today from what's called a physiological perspective, meaning like what actually goes on in the body when you're fasting, because so many people right now are fascinated with fasting, and I agree. It is the closest thing that we have right now to the fountain of youth, and I really believe that and really mean that. However, we always have the opportunity to overdo things, and I believe that's kind of that Western-based perspective, meaning if a little bit is good, let's do a lot of it. Well, it doesn't always work that way, and especially when we're adding exercise back into this equation. So what I want to share with you today is actually how fasting has been done for many thousands of years throughout human history, and if they included exercise, and if they did, which exercises were included. So I want to give you the Ayurvedic-based perspective, give you a really all the Eastern-based philosophies perspective of what to do while fasting, what it was used for, and I won't get as deep into what it was used for since that's something I've spoke about on previous podcasts, but I am going to give you what to be doing, what not to be doing from a larger overall macro perspective so that you understand why I'm giving you these recommendations. I always want you to know that I'm not giving you a specific dogma of this is exactly what you need to do and it's this or nothing. No, what I wanted you to do is learn about larger concepts, learn about your health overall, because I want you to be able to take the information, and then when you encounter a new event or activity, you can then decide for yourself, is this correct or not, because you'll have a basis point. If all someone ever gives you is an article with a list of bullet points or checklists, what you need to follow, you don't understand it from a deeper perspective. So I want you to start to go deep on your own health. After all, it is your body. And after all, if you don't have your health, really, I mean, honestly, what do you have? So that's why I find this so important. It's great to read articles. It's great to read the research. But what I need you to understand is that how does it fit in a greater context? So that's the perspective I like to bring things. I don't disagree with different research articles that people bring me. I just say, listen, agreed with it, but we're talking about something in an isolated bubble. So I want you to think about when this is then moved into the real world where there are multiple factors in order to take those into consideration of whether it's good or bad, and I have that in air quotes right now. I want you to know why I say those things, because there's always a kind of like, yes, that's true, except in this instance. Yes, that's typically true, but, and I will give you some different circumstances. So there's never an all for one. And you could even make a couple little caveats for today. But I can tell you right now, this is based on thousands of years of history, but more importantly, it's based on actually how our bodies work. So when I talk about, physiology and exercise physiology and how the body is, the mechanics within the body are working, the systems of the body, I want to explain to you first and foremost that when we're fasting, I always have to ask people because they're like, oh, I'd love to, do long fasts and really hard workouts. And I say, well, why? Why are you doing that? And there's typically no real answer, oh, I just feel really great when I do it. I'm like, okay. But I want to know more than that, because that you could feel great in the moment, but then detrimental it could be down the line, right? I mean, a lot of people feel great when doing certain things, but it's not necessarily great for their health or their body. So what I ask is what is the point of fasting? That's really what I have to ask people. Why would you fast? Because it's not always that fun to just say, hey, I'd rather be eating, but I've never decided to fast. And we recommend functional medicine detox to people. And, we're huge proponents because we've seen it work. We know what works, and it's based on science. So when I ask people, and they don't really know, well, then you're not going to ever get the most benefit if you don't know why you're doing it. So, although we recommend the Dr. Cabral detox or a functional medicine detox, we recommend certain protocols, we want you to know why you would do it in the first place. So when you're doing a fast, I've done many, many shows on fasting. So you can literally just go to stephencabral.com/podcasts and just type in fasting or fasted. And you'll come up with podcasts that I've done previously. And I've done many, many podcasts like why not to skip breakfast and this and that. So you'll get different perspectives. And I'm just about bringing you many different perspectives on a topic. But the truth is this, for most of us, when we do a fast, it is for weight loss reasons or it's for health reasons, or it could be both, or anti-aging. So you know, hopefully by now, that our practice is made up of weight loss clients, wellness-based clients, and it's made up of anti-aging-based clients. Well, all three of those people benefit from fasting, and essentially in the same way and slightly different ways. There's some overlap, meaning that when you're in a fasted state, as long as you keep those cortisol levels down, and you keep the fight or flight down, which again I spoke about on that podcast now in regards to cortisol and blood sugar and inflammation and weight gain. I talked about how fasting could actually cause you to gain more weight. That was the stress that leads to female hormone imbalance and infertility. That was a big one on 978. Let's see if I can find the one on cortisol, though, real quick for you here. It was 957, and that's been quite a popular show, so I do hope you tune into that, of understanding that how skipping breakfast, you could actually gain weight. So you could actually start to gain weight around the middle because of the influx of cortisol, but it tells you exactly why. So I won't explain that in that show. If you do fast, you could be at a caloric deficit, so that can help for people that need to be at a caloric deficit. But it allows you, as long as you're in a fasted and a low metabolic state, meaning like you're not ramping up overall sympathetic nervous system dominance or fight or flight or stress, then you can very easily tap into fat cells or fat stores, your adipose tissue. And you're able to do that because you're in a relaxed state, a relaxed-based environment, and your body needs a fuel source. And if your blood sugar is low enough, meaning within a healthy range between about 75 and 95 if you're using that glucometer. And I did speak a little bit about this yesterday. So today's show, if you want to go to today's show notes and all the different links, just go to stephencabral.com/1014. And if you want to go to yesterday's show, it's 1013. That's all. And they're all at stephencabral.com/podcasts. So one of the nice things is that if you are in that lower relaxed state, you're actually going to be burning a larger percentage of body fat from adipose tissue because you're in a slow, relaxed state. Your body has enough time to very slowly break down body fat, and that allows for fat oxidation, and you get to use the fuel from stored fat as then calories for the body, and the body can run off of that. So that's great, and it has to do more with calories, it has to do with triglycerides, other things like that, but your body's using it as a fuel source. So that's fantastic. From a wellness perspective, you're allowing now less energy to be used for digestion or the overall metabolic processes of the body when you're in a more relaxed state and you are fasted. And it allows for your immune system to begin to become, more rejuvenated. So you're actually able to go after and scavenger certain things such as viruses. That would be one. If you have intestinal permeability-based issues, well, you have less food coming in, so you'll most likely have less leakage into the blood. And for an anti-aging-based perspective, a lot along the lines of wellness, of course, but you're getting and you're enabling the process of autophagy. And autophagy means that blood sugar levels are down and that your body is able to be in a relaxed state where no new food is coming in. And remember, even with the healthiest food in the world, there are actually toxic byproducts of the metabolism or the metabolic process. So if you don't have that going on, then it's really easy then for your body, because you have only so many white blood cells that are moving around the body, macrophages and everything else, and macrophages, and you're going around the body and you're eating up basically dead bacteria, necrotic tissue, and et cetera, right? So you're allowing your body to squelch free radical damage, and you're going in and you're cleaning house. That's essentially what happens with autophagy. You can kill cancer cells that way. I've spoken about this many times. One of the best discoveries, well, the discovery's been around since Ayurvedic times, 6,000 years ago, but in 2016, it did win the Nobel Prize in Oncology for cancer, the process of autophagy. And I write about that in my book, The Rain Barrel Effect, as well. Well, we can harness that every single day by doing overnight fast of 12 hours. And again, I've spoken about that before, and longer fasts as well. So I'm actually a proponent of how long people should fast, and you can do the typical 12-hour overnight fast, and then you can go slightly longer, which might be 16. Then you can do a 24-hour fast. Then you can do multiple day fasts. And since I've explained that before and that really needs its own podcast, what I'm going to try to do, I'm not sure that I can find that right off the bat because I've done many shows on how long your fast should be or types of fast that you should do. But why don't I try to link that up today at the show notes? So just go to stevecabral.com/1014 for today's show notes and links. So I'll put that right in there, and I'm going to put in how long should you fast. And that, again, depends on the person and the goals as well. So the ideal thing, though, is what do we do while fasted? Well, the point of being in a fasted state, if we're looking at it in terms of body fat burning, well, we want to be in a lowered output state so we can tap into more body fat. So that's great. But then another part is this, is that for wellness-based and for anti-aging, we need to be in a relaxed state so that we can take advantage of this thing called autophagy, which is a scavenging of the body and really ramping up the immune system in a good way, allowing for the body to clean house. Then at the same time, we do not want to do things then to pull us out of this state. So anything that puts us into what's called a fight or flight or survival-based mode or sympathetic nervous system dominance, ramping up what's called the HPA axis, the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, any one of those things is going to pull you out of the state of autophagy. It's going to pull you out of the state of what's called the parasympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic nervous system is the direct opposite of the sympathetic nervous system, which make up the autonomic nervous system. I know that I'm starting to get a little technical here, but this is important. And the reason is that it's not enough just to fast. You need to know why you're doing it. Well, you're doing it to give your body a way to be in a more relaxed state to enable you to get the wellness benefits, the anti-aging benefits of helping to rebalance the immune system and get rid of those cancer cells in your body and other necrotic tissue and bacteria and viruses, etc. And from a weight loss perspective, you're keeping the blood sugar low and you're tapping into body fat. Great. That happens in the parasympathetic nervous system. However, when we're stressed, if we have a big cup of coffee, there's a lot of caffeine, we're in rush hour traffic, whatever it is, we push ourselves from the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and relax, into what's called the sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight. When this happens, we ramp up stress hormones, namely adrenaline or norepinephrine, so those are the catecholamines. And then we ramp up what's called cortisol, and those are basically, it's one of the glucocorticoids, and that's going to raise blood sugar levels. So what happens is we pull ourselves out of this rejuvenating state, which is the parasympathetic nervous system, and we pull ourselves into fight or flight. Now, at this point, your goals of being in a fasted state for autophagy and for weight loss, all those things are now done. They're over when you're in that stressed out state. And that's why so many people have a much more difficult time with losing weight, transforming their body, etc., because even if they're doing the right diet and the right exercise, their body is so stressed, so inflamed that they still hold weight around the middle or midsection. And a lot of times for guys, that might be sometimes under the armpits, near the chest. And for women, it can start to expand on the hips as well because of something called estrogen dominance. And I've explained that before, and that was on episode 978, I believe, how stress shuts down the female hormones. I believe that was the one, or how it leads to infertility. So really important that we then move on to, because that is the topic of today's show, what exercises would pull you out of that parasympathetic nervous system, would pull you out of the rejuvenating state that's allowing you to get all the benefits of fasting. Because remember, when you're in a fasted state, you're already moving into what's called a catabolic state. That means your body has basically less coming in than it's outputting. So that's not a bad thing, right? That's a fasted state. We're moving towards a more catabolic state. Now, again, short term, not a bad thing. Long term, not so great, right? That's what a good practitioner knows when to tell you, like, that's enough, right? Or how often you should be doing it. Now, the other thing is this, is that if we're being pulled out of this fasted state here, and we're in a fasted state, and we're doing more hard activity, we're actually driving ourselves deeper into what's called catabolism or breakdown, tissue breakdown. That actually means that your body, since it has no new fuel coming in, and if your blood sugar levels are lower, it can actually begin to tap into muscle tissue, or it could begin to tap into just something called liver glycogen. And again, that's not necessarily a bad thing, except that it can artificially raise blood sugar levels, which we don't want, especially in a fasted state, because we begin to lose the benefits of the balanced immune system. We start to elevate things such as Well, it can elevate cortisol, which can elevate blood sugar, which could elevate insulin, which could elevate interleukin 6 and certain inflammatory cytokines, which, again, that doesn't help our immune system when we're trying to kill all these different cells or at least bacteria and things that shouldn't be in the body. So here's what we need to think about. When we're in a fasted state, we need to keep ourselves in a relaxed state. That's the bottom line. That's right there. 10 minutes of me trying to sum that up. Keep your body in more of a relaxed state. But it's not enough. People are like, well, just tell me what it is. I could say, hey, when you're in a fasted state, stay in a relaxed state as well. Do things that are relaxing. And you might say, well, okay, great, but you didn't know why. So I gave you all the context of why you need to be in a fasted state. In a relaxed state while fasted. Now you know why. Because you're trying to create certain processes within the body that only happen when you're in the parasympathetic nervous system, which only happens when you're more relaxed. So let's talk about now what exercise, because this is going to begin to make sense now, and you can begin to understand that if I didn't name the exercise today, you get to think about which category it would fall in. And then you get to decide, because of your own education, of what's the smartest choice or not. Okay, so let's go right into it. The exercises that are not going to be the best while in a fasted state are those exercises that push you to a more sympathetic nervous system dominant state, more of the fight or flight, and more of the glycogen-based exercises, more of the anaerobic-based exercises, more like the sugar-burning ones. So we'll think of it this way. If we're talking about higher intensity weight training, if we're talking about sprints, if we're talking about spin-based classes, if we're talking about high-intensity interval training, HIIT-based training, if we're talking about even hot yoga, okay, which is going to get that heart rate elevated, which is going to cause us to do a lot of sweating as well, and it can typically be more like 90 minutes. Also, other types of yoga that are popping up, kind of like a core power yoga where you're using weights. Here's the easiest way to think about this. Are you doing exercise that's limited by lactic acid buildup or that you could not maintain for greater than 5 minutes straight of doing that one exercise? If you are, you're in more of an anaerobic-based training threshold. So again, for weight training, typically you're going to do an exercise will be to failure somewhere within 30 seconds, let's say, to 90 seconds for most people. You could be failure within 10 seconds, but that would be an extremely anaerobic-based state. So think about sprints. They're self-limiting. You're not going to do a sprint for more than 90 seconds. If you were doing a sprint for more than 90 seconds, it's no longer a sprint. The human body can pretty much go all out for about 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes if you're well-trained, and then literally you're passing out after that. So it's self-limiting, but I use 5 minutes as just a barometer because if you can do something for 5 minutes, it has to be at a lower rate, which we'll talk about next. Spin class. Now, spin class is a little bit of a hybrid. If someone was sitting in the back of the spin class and they were going a little lighter, I'd say, okay, well, we're talking about a little bit of a different story. However, during that spin class, you're going to have an elevated heart rate. You're going to be up on the bike. You're going to be doing the hill sprints. You're going to be doing intervals with it that are self-limited as well. So you're switching back actually in a spin class. Again, it depends on the instructor in the class, but you're switching back and forth between aerobic and anaerobic. So it's a little bit of a back and forth, but since you're still doing quite a bit of anaerobic, it does count and not one I would recommend on a fast-based day. So hot yoga, the biggest one with this is that in a lot of hot yoga, it depends what you're doing, like Bikram-based or Baptiste. Again, it could be any type of hot yoga that you're doing, that you are most likely not able to hold a lot of those poses for more than that 5 minutes, right? You'd pass out. It's a hybrid. I have nothing against hot yoga, but you're also in a fasted state sweating out a tremendous amount of your minerals, so we need to replace those as well. So again, kind of back and forth on that one, but enough, and you'll be able to figure that out. It really depends, too, on how hard you're pushing yourself. I'll sum this up in just 1 minute as well, so you can figure out if it's the right move for you or not. And then core power, you're doing oftentimes some light weights, but remember those light weights you wouldn't be able to lift for that one exercise. I'm talking about one exercise, like let's say shoulder raises in core power. Well, you're not going to be able to do shoulder raises for 5 minutes straight, that's for sure. You can't even take your arms and move them up and down, basically flopping up and down your sides for 5 minutes. Like your arms would start to really burn. It would take longer, but you'd start to get into that anaerobic-based threshold as well. Here's the easiest way to think about it. If you were doing an exercise that can be taken to failure really within 5 minutes or under, you're pushing yourself to more of an anaerobic-based state. It's a grossly simplified version, but it will absolutely work to know if you're doing a type of training that's going to be potentially detrimental while fasted. I do want to apply one more caveat to this. If you're doing a once a month fast, literally that's it, and it's one day, you could work out that day. It's probably not going to be a big deal. I'm talking about some person that decides to skip breakfast every single morning, but weight train or do high intensity interval training, all of those things, and not eat then until lunch. So that not only they weight train an empty stomach, but they're going another 3 hours, 4 hours after that without refueling, rebuilding the body. That can catch up with you. That can be additional catabolic work in the body, and you've most likely spiked blood sugar. Again, if you don't believe me, that's okay. Just use a glucometer, and you'll see that you're out of the fasted state anyway. Like, honestly, that's the truth. I work with so many CrossFit athletes. I work with Spartan athletes. I work with elite athletes, and like literally we're testing their blood sugar levels all the time just to prove a point. Now, if you're more of an endomorphic body type, you've got a good amount of muscle mass on you, might not be as significant. But again, you need to know yourself, know your body. The truth is this, though. Get the benefits of exercise by doing the exercise. Get the benefits of fasting by doing a fast. You don't need to combine the two. Now, here's the nice thing. Unless you're fasting every single day, which I'm not recommending. I'm recommending a 12-hour overnight fast, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. for most people. But if you are doing, there are exercises that you can do, I want to put it this way, that you can do on longer fasts. So for example, let's say someone's doing a Dr. Cabral detox, or they're doing another functional medicine detox, or every week they fast for one day. Okay, they fast for a 24-hour for one day. But you're like, no, I'd still like to do some exercise that day. Totally understand. You can listen to your body. You can take the day off. You could do more self-care, which is what I really recommend. I recommend going for a massage or acupuncture. I recommend going for, well, I'll talk about in a moment, sauna, things like that. So you're doing real parasympathetic nervous system activity to really ramp up the effects of fasting. However, let's say, you know what? I love exercising, and I want to just build in exercise to my program while fasting. I say, okay, we can do that. So keep it in mind, we're going to now stick with, instead of anaerobic-based exercises, more aerobic-based exercises, okay? So this means we're working with oxygen, and we're also working on fat as a predominant fuel source over glycogen or sugar. So it simply means that we're able to maintain an activity that's going to last longer than 2 minutes, but let's use 5 minutes for an example. 5 minutes at a steady pace. We're not doing interval sprints. We're moving at a steady pace. This will lower glucose slightly in the body, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. We just have to watch out when we're fasting. If we do any type of exercise, it can often lower glucose, and we can start to get lightheaded or dizzy. So just be careful with that. That's all. But what are some examples? Well, the very best example is this. I love people to go for a walk while they're fasting. You might say, well, that's not really exercise. And I would essentially agree with you. Walking is human activity. It does not really count as exercise. It does count as what I call a level 1 exercise. If you're not active and you're sedentary, you don't need to go to the gym yet. What you need to do is work up to 10,000 steps per day. Can't do that? Well, that's okay, because I do work with clients that actually, they have issues with their feet. They can't actually do 10,000 steps per day. You can move then into level 2, which is some cardio, hopping on an exercise bike or going out for a bike ride. Very leisurely, light, okay? Light, you can easily maintain that pace for an hour if you wanted to, right? 40 minutes an hour, no problem at all. So we love walking, we love leisurely bike rides, no big deal at all. My third favorite, honestly, is sauna. And a lot of people don't look at sauna as exercise. And I can understand that, because you're seated, you're sitting there, you're not really doing too much in that dry sauna or infrared sauna. But here's the interesting fact, is that sauna actually does increase the heart rate slightly. And in the sauna, you can burn over 300 calories an hour. Now, I know you're probably not sitting in that sauna for an hour. Hopefully you're not. I don't think even at 120 degrees, you'd want to cook in there for an hour. I think 40 minutes is probably great for most people in an infrared sauna where the temperature is around 120 to 150 degrees. And then for a finished sauna where it's around 180 degrees, more like 10 to 20 minutes is probably going to be great. So here's what we want to look at. That is a form of exercise. It's actually a form of stimulation. Your body gets much of the benefits of light cardio while doing sauna. Sauna is a pretty amazing thing. When I talk about, not pretty amazing, it's amazing. When I talk about what are all the different anti-aging and fountain of youth-based things, I am putting together a kind of a how-to on this in the future. But sauna and fasting are up there. And if you can combine the two, even better. Because as you heat up the body, you also do what? Well, you improve circulation, you improve white blood cell flow. What else do you do? Well, as you heat up the body and increase the core temperature, you kill viruses. It's pretty amazing. You start to, in an infrared sauna, you start to draw out heavy metals. Pretty phenomenal. Again, they've been doing this for many thousands of years with what's called panchakarma. So, all right, I love walking, love the leisurely bike ride, love the sauna. I also love rebounding. Rebounding while doing a fast moves the lymphatic system safely, gently, and it's kind of fun. And you can just kind of bounce up and down, bounce up and down. You don't have to do 5 minutes straight, but you could bounce up and down for 30 seconds or so. Your heart rate's not going to get too high. We don't want to make this too strenuous of an activity, but you're allowing that lymphatic system to move. And if we can drain the lymphatic system, if we can move the lymphatic system, it is a one-way pump, remember, and we can move that towards the heart. Well, what we get to do as well is we get to move the toxins and facilitate the toxins out of the body to a much greater degree. Love that. Okay, now we're getting into more specific ones. Huge fan of Hatha Yoga or Tai Chi or Qigong. All of those are great for moving the body, oxygenating the body, and really getting the kind of the lymphatic flow and life force flow, whatever you want to call it, of the body. All I'm talking about with that, for people that don't speak that language, that's okay, is we are getting the energy moving through the body. We're getting the blood moving through the body to a greater degree without excessively increasing the heart rate and certainly not getting into that sympathetic nervous system. All right, another one. Love this, but it's a hybrid. So we can push this too hard. Light swimming. So again, how do you know if you're staying out of the anaerobic threshold of swimming? Because swimming can be a great anaerobic exercise as well. Like if you're doing lap swimming, like sprinting laps, great anaerobic activity. How do you know? Well, you're able to do 5 minutes or more of straight swimming, and you will stay more towards the aerobic threshold. So swimming can be absolutely fantastic as well. I'll give you the kind of the giveaway in just one moment. And the last one, which is borderline, is some light body weight exercises. So you could do maybe some body weight squats and some lunges and some step ups and some lateral lunges, and you could do some light chops. You could do your sun salutations from yoga, of course. You could do some light push-ups, not to failure. So the key with every single one of these in the exercise that I just named for the aerobic is not to failure, 60%, 70% maximum to keep you in more of that aerobic base threshold, able to push at a pace that you could easily push for 5 minutes or more. Rate of perceived exertion, you should be able to carry on a conversation with a friend beside you while doing that activity. The only one that might be challenging to do that would be the swimming, right? But you should be at a pace that allows you to carry not an easy conversation, but carry a conversation on with the person beside you. That would be your rate of perceived exertion, okay? We can do this by heart rate. We can do it by a lot of different ways, but that is one easy way to think about it. So again, if you're just fasting every once in a while, once a month, and you want to do any type of workout, be my guest, okay? Not an issue because you're probably not going to be depleted of glycogen stores and all of that. But if you're someone who wants to make fasting part of a regular routine, or let's say you do a seasonal Dr. Cabral detox every 12 weeks, and you're doing the 2 days of fasting in the beginning, well, then you're going to want to choose more of the aerobic-based exercise I just named, or just some of the self-care, the massage, the sauna, meditation, rebounding, walking, light bike ride. That's what I recommend. Don't overdo it. This is a time to rejuvenate the body for anti-aging and for wellness, okay? Now, if you're doing that, great. And if you're doing the once a week, I think this would be a great day to do more of a cardio-based day or a lighter day. And then when you're fueling your body with great food again, then that's a day to ramp up more of your weight-based training. So hopefully this was helpful. I wanted to, again, give you the education on why you're doing it specifically and what's going to give you the most benefit. I hope and believe that we're doing exercise. Some people love to exercise, and that's great. But a lot of people do it because they want the health benefits and they want the body transformation benefits. So if you want that, what I want you to do is understand why you're doing each one so that you can maximize the benefits of fasting and then also, on the other days, maximize the benefits of your exercise as well. Thanks again for tuning into the Cabral Concept. If this was helpful, as always, please do feel free to share it with anyone you believe it could serve. I want to sincerely thank you for your support of this podcast. I couldn't do it without you, and I mean that. I truly do. I also want to make sure you knew that we now have multiple ways for you to find your answers to the most difficult health, wellness, weight loss, and anti-aging questions. You can find podcast-specific topics like thyroid, adrenal, hormones, sleep, digestion, Ayurveda, and many more at stevencabral.com/podcasts that will then link you to your favorite Apple, Spotify, and other podcast players. Plus, all new podcasts and weekly exclusive video content is being added to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Stephen Cabral. And that's Stephen with a PH. Head on over and subscribe so that you don't miss any of the exclusive content. Lastly, if you've ever found any of my podcasts or books to be helpful, I would really appreciate it if you could leave a review on iTunes or your favorite media player for the podcast. Rating and subscribing to the YouTube and podcast allow me to reach more and more people and help spread my mission of healing throughout the world. Thank you again for being a part of this movement.